Hey guys, welcome back. It's me, Davo Mysterio, and we are back with another Where'd They Go Wednesday. I had like a 10-minute intro planned explaining why I've been gone, why I haven't posted, some personal details in my life, but I did a little bit of a realization in the fact that this is a missing persons channel. All we do is really cover missing persons and crime cases and serial killers, and this type of content doesn't really have the room for my personal opinions and life to be implemented into. I feel like it's a bit disrespectful. That being said, we're going to try and leave that out of our cases from here on out and just get to the point with it. This case, for lack of a better word, is very weird. It's a very weird case. You can try looking it up online. You cannot find it anywhere. I've tried Googling it. It's almost as if people are trying to censor it in a sense. Some of the sources I've even used are gone now. After I did a little research, I wrote down what I needed. I was going to cite them all in the description, but they are absolutely gone now. Like, the people have gotten rid of them. They're really trying to keep this case under wraps. That being said, today's case is a little personal to me for some reason. I feel like I relate to it, and being how weird it is, it's definitely opened like my eyes in ways I never thought I would have to open them before. Never thought I would even open them before. It takes place in a little town in the state of Rhode Island called East Greenwich. It's always these weird little towns. You always expect it to be in high crime cities like New York, Los Angeles, Chicago, the places that typically you hear about a lot of crime, but it's always these weird little, like, no big deal communities where it's just, it's a tiny little suburb, everyone gets along, a lot of old retired people, kind of out of the way a bit, not real city-like. So that's where this case takes place, and it follows the story of 16-year-old male Stephen Bough. I believe it's Bough or Bough. I believe it's Bough. It's French. From basically what I've gotten from some interviews with his mom and some of his family. Stephen is essentially a 16-year-old male, typical high school student. I believe he was a junior. He skipped a grade ahead. He was very smart, very intelligent. He had two siblings. His mom and dad were separated. He was just living with his mom. His mom's a single parent of all three of the children. And he grew up pretty much his whole life in East Greenwich, Rhode Island. When people describe Stephen, it's, always positive. He lit up every room he walked into, always had a smile on his face, always knew how to cheer up his friends, cheer up his family. He worked a lot and helped support his family, his mom, when she'd go through tougher times. He worked at a Piggly Wiggly, which is basically like a Trader Joe's, kind of a grocery store up in the Midwest, Rhode Island type area. And just always a positive guy, always a chip on his shoulder. Great friend. Friends always described him just positively. He was basically the man of the world. Stephen, on his free time and after school, partook in a lot of activities. He was in show choir, the drama club, forensics, and while he did participate in all of those, the main thing he was always into was always online gaming. He liked to play a lot of Terraria, if anyone's familiar with that, Diablo 4, and I believe he also played a lot of World of War Tanks, which is like a game where it's like an MMO, so a lot of people are in this game, and a lot of people are talking, communicating with each other. I've played a little bit with some of my friends, and I quit because I met a lot of really weird people on that game. Stephen hadn't been playing World of War Tanks very long. It was a bit of a newer game for him. He was only reported to have been playing it about 5 months. And normally I wouldn't report all this game time stuff, but it is relative to the story. About 3 months into Stephen playing World of War Tanks, his friend said he had met a girl on the game, and that her name was Alyssa, and basically she kind of started to pull Stephen away from his friends a little bit. She wasn't comfortable being in group calls with them. So Steven started kind of going off into these private calls with her. They reported that he was kind of being a little secretive, not really talking much about what was going on in his life. He started disconnecting from people a little bit, which, it's completely normal at the age of 16. He was keeping it private. He wasn't always familiar with going. He didn't have a lot of female friends. He just, probably wanted to keep that part of his life private, and that's completely understandable. What was weird about it was that Steven's friends reported he started looking physically different. He was, rumored to be experimenting a little bit with, drugs, alcohol. They started seeing videos of him on Snapchat, of him at parties, acting really weird, just very different from himself. And everyone had suspected, maybe this has a little something to do with Alyssa. What they found out later was that Alyssa actually lived in just the town over from East Greenwich, West Greenwich. And essentially, they believed that maybe he was starting to hang out with her and maybe the wrong crowd. And they were worried about him, and they tried reaching out to him. When Steven's friends reached out to him, they tried doing it as caringly as possible from what, I can find. They tried, approaching him, asking him if anything was wrong, how things were at home, how are things going with this Alyssa girl. They just assumed he was kind of in a, relationship with her. Hard not to, based on, what they were experiencing. And he did not react well at all. His friends reported that immediately upon being asked about it, immediately he felt like he was being attacked. He was being accused of things. And his face got visibly red. He started cussing a lot, sweating, started getting so mad that even his words they stopped making sense because he's just getting so visibly mad. And this really, really concerned his friends. They were trying to calm him down. He wouldn't do it. He stormed out of the building they were in immediately. They're at their friend Kyle's house. And he was just not happy. They'd only been hanging out about 15 minutes, and he was already going off. This concerned his friends so much that they decided to bring it up to his family. The thing with Steven's mom is, I don't want to use this term. It seems a little harsh maybe, but it's just a term used. She was a bit of a helicopter mom. She was a bit overbearing, overprotective. Steven is her firstborn, being the oldest sibling in his family, and she kind of looked at him as her big boy and kind of like a protector, kind of a guardian of the house, man of the house essentially. He was still helping provide, and a highly valued member of the household. Not that they weren't all, but obviously, he was kind of carrying some weight on his back. When she found out about this, about his drinking, about him throwing his friends away, that was not what she had taught him. Not the type of lifestyle she had laid out for him. And, being a single parent, she had a lot on her plate, so she can't. I don't really blame the parents in the situation. He was doing normal things for a 16-year-old. This is completely normal behavior. He's going through a lot. He's had to deal with a lot, feeling like he has to provide, feeling like he has a burden on his back. It's completely understandable. By the way, guys, I'm sorry if you do hear any weird noises. There are about 80 trains going on in the background. I live right by a train track, so try to ignore it. I'll try to avoid it, edit it out if I can, but just in case you guys hear anything, that's what it is. Don't worry, I'm not getting killed. No big deal. But as I was saying, this is normal behavior, considering all the stress that, he was going through. And his mom was a bit, like I said, a bit more of a traditional household. This was not how her big boy was supposed to act. And because of that, it's not also completely unreasonable for her to react the way she did. Maybe a bit harsh, but what she ended up doing was canceling his subscription to his World of War Tanks account. Not only did she cancel his World of War Tanks account, she also took his phone away. And these two things were pretty much the only two ways of him communicating with Alyssa and other friends. And this drove Steven to measures that no one really predicted it would. You know, he'd been punished before and he'd always handled it extremely well. But because of this, he couldn't communicate with Alyssa. His friends were getting really weird messages after this from this Alyssa girl. You know, where is Steven? Why is he ignoring me? You know, all these things. And she would start to get like violent almost in some of these messages, saying like, where the fuck is Steven? Or where is that shitbag? And things like that. This really concerned Steven's friends, and then once again they brought it up to his mom, and they decided they were all going to have like a big talk in his living room that day after school. So they asked, hey, can we come hang out at your house after school? Steven was a little bit reluctant, but through some persuasion they convinced him, like, yeah, come over. They're already planning to, but they wanted to make it seem like, you know, they didn't want him to know anything was up before coming there. And essentially when they got there, they all sat him down. His mom was sitting there waiting. His siblings went upstairs, went into their rooms, and they all had a very serious talk. This talk basically entailed, once again, you know, how they were concerned with him. They were, you know, worried about his decisions, worried about this Alyssa girl and how, you know, vulgar and violent she was talking over the internet. And this time he didn't react as violently. He just kind of quietly, in the middle of it, went to the bathroom. And he was in there for a very long time. And what people didn't realize at the time is that Steven had purchased another, you know, like track smartphone, prepaid smartphone, with his Piggly Wiggly money. And essentially he'd been using that to communicate with Alyssa. And basically what he was doing was calling an Uber to his house. And he comes out still calm as ever. They start talking about the conversation, and they notice the car pulls up outside about 20, 30 minutes later. No one thinks anything of it, and he's just calmly sitting there, doesn't even acknowledge it. And then the bomb drops on the conversation. Sorry guys, if you see me change outfits halfway through the video, it's because, you know, trying to put these out every 2 hours, these mystery videos, sometimes I have to record them on different days. And it's like, it's just, I don't want to throw anyone off or have anyone be really confused as to why I'm like switching outfits halfway through it. So if you see me in this outfit and then you see me in this outfit, that's because they were recorded on different days. So just in case anyone was confused, I just wanted to get that out there. Steven's friends had seen him in the local Burger King parking lot, essentially masturbating. And he was just doing it. He drove a convertible. The top was down, and he was just sitting there apparently very obviously masturbating. And, you know, they didn't share that. They're good friends. They didn't start spreading it around. But they brought that up to him, and they're like, you know, what's going on? Why are you masturbating in the Burger King parking lot? When Steven realized he had been caught doing this, he freaked out. He grabbed a bag from the bathroom. Apparently he had been preparing in the bathroom. His friends all stood up. His mom stood up and was like, Steven, what's going on? And he just starts out the door, hops in the Uber, and must have told the Uber to just tail it, because just took off. The Uber took off. Everyone started panicking. What the hell's going on? This was the last time Steven's mom, family, or his friends seen him. The Uber driver, you know, did an interview and actually explained their whole dialogue, which I do have here. I'll be happy to read that. And apparently this is what was going through Steven's head, and, you know, what he was talking about after this moment had happened. So right here I have it. So it describes, he got in the car, huffing and puffing, panting, sweating, notably red in the face. And the Uber driver says, "You okay, man?" And he ignored that, and Steven instantly replies, "How long have you been doing Uber?" And the Uber driver explained he'd been doing it for like 2 years or whatever. And then, it was all quiet. He was heading to his destination. And apparently, from what was described, he noticed by looking in, his rear view mirror that he could see Steven grabbing at his t-shirt and pulling down on it like this, just yanking down on it and complaining. In his words, he said, he kept mumbling, and the only thing I got out of his inaudible mumbling was, or incoherent mumbling, sorry guys, was, why did this bitch never buy me V-necks? I always wanted V-necks. All she bought me is stupid t-shirts. Which shows a little bit of frustration and struggle maybe in Steven's earlier years, maybe towards his mom a bit. Not every household is perfect. Not every household is a fairy tale. We all have our demons. We all have our skeletons. We all have some issues. Petty teenager shit sometimes. Sometimes serious things. Sometimes single parents get stressed out. Understandable. After about halfway to their location, which the Uber driver can't even really remember at this point because this situation was so weird, Steven opens the door of the Uber. He is on the passenger rear side, in the rear seats, back seats, on the passenger side, opens the door, and literally tucks and rolls out of the car. At this point, on the right of them was a little pond and a woods behind it. And you could run around it. There was grass. And apparently, Steven just took off and ran into the woods. After that, the Uber driver had not seen him at all. About 24 hours pass after this. And people noticed that Alyssa's account on Discord, on World of War tanks, all these things have completely disappeared. She is no longer an existing user on these platforms. And people thought that was extremely weird. They wanted to contact her and talk to her, like, what's going on? Do you know where Steven went? Do you know where he is? What have you heard from him? We know he had another phone, but there was no one to talk to about it. She was gone. Almost as if the account was never there. Usually Discord shows like a deleted user number, blah, blah, blah. But this was literally like no account left. Gone completely. No record of any conversation with her. Everything gone. And the last reported scene of Steven is one of the people in West Greenwich. Now you gotta remember, he's from East Greenwich. This is in West Greenwich. The driver explains that he would be heading, the direction of where he was going would have been in the direction of West Greenwich. And we can presume he was heading there because of Alyssa. And because of that, someone reported that in West Greenwich they had seen him walking down the street, mumbling things to himself, swearing often, and punching trees. He was punching trees, apparently just winding up, punching trees. People said he wasn't looking good. He was hobbling everywhere, occasionally yelling, and like, not like swear words or even audible language, just more like, ah! And things like that. But other than that, he's not been seen after this by anyone, that can say eyewitness, we've seen him in person. I like to take a moment, just take a break here, let you guys process everything that's happened. I know a lot of the people in this community, a lot of my fellow co-creators, like to have their coffee, have a little sip of coffee, or something. Me personally, that's not my style. I like to sit down, relax, reflect on the things I've just talked about, have a little bit of macaroni, and a little bit of Malibu. Nothing washes down Kraft macaroni like Malibu rum. Trust me. Try it. In fact, that combination is actually Steven's favorite meal. And so, that's why we're drinking it in honor of him. Alright, back to the video. So, essentially, he's been missing. It's been about a week now. And things start getting a little weird. He it's not confirmed it's him. We believe it's him, but it seems as if he tried reaching out to his mom. And we have the actual call here. It was recorded. And we can play it, but essentially he'd been gone, and he calls out to his mom, and this is pretty much all that is heard.
Mom? Mom? Fuck you, Mom. Stay out of my life.
His mom, obviously very upset by that. By the way, I blurred out the mom's voice in the call. I didn't do it. They blurred out the mom's voice. She didn't want her voice to be publicly broadcasted on TV. She felt that it would maybe take away from listeners actually hearing her son's voice, and that like her voice is like, she always felt like she had like a really alluring voice. Some people said she had the voice of like a siren, like a mermaid, and she thought that would take the meaning away from the vocal recording. She wanted people to hear her big boy's voice, and because of that, that's all you hear. But what she was saying essentially was like, Steven, is that you? Steven, is that you? And then he goes on that little rant. Another week goes by. Authorities have been looking for him. They've checked that woods. They've checked West Greenwich, East Greenwich, even North Greenwich a little bit. They've checked all over Rhode Island, and they just no luck. No one knows anything. Oof, sorry, macaroni. No one knows where Alyssa is. No one knows who Alyssa even is. No one can find either of them. And it's starting to feel like a lost cause. And at this point, poor Miss Bough gets another voice call. And we have it here, and this is essentially what she hears. Just want to point out before you listen to this isn't for the faint of heart. It's a bit disturbing. If you're really sensitive to these sort of things, skip ahead a little bit. Hopefully you don't click into it. But yeah, it's a little graphic, so just prepare yourselves.
Stop! She's fucking hitting me! Oh my god! Ah!
During this part, this image was also sent to his mother's phone, and he captioned it, "Me being dragged away, help." So with that being sent, things aren't looking too good for Steven, huh? And that really is the last vocal, remnant of existence we have left of Steven Bough. And it's not a positive one, and it's definitely not something his family wanted to hear. And things aren't looking good, right? Things are not looking good. Finally, we get 2 images texted to Steven's mom's phone about 2.5 weeks later, precisely 15 to 16 days later, right? And she gets these images, and these are a bit graphic. So one here is of who we presume to be Alyssa, because it says Alyssa on it, and then one of Steven, and I cropped it out a bit because he is deceased in this photo. It appears to be deceased in this photo, and it's essentially a confirmation that Alyssa is the one who's had Steven this whole time, and Steven is dead. We don't know 100% sure that this is Steven, but it looks a lot like Steven, and we're not positive, but because of that, he has been dismissed as dead by the police. But the problem is his family's still begging, please don't quit looking for my boy. He may have jerked off in a parking lot. He may have been a drug addict. He may have been an alcoholic. He may have abandoned his friends. He may have, eaten Malibu and macaroni together. But he's still a human being. These are normal behaviors at the age of 16. This isn't uncommon. This is normal. He's the man of the world. And he lit up every room. And he smiled all the time. He was always happy. He worked at Piggly Wiggly. These are all normal things. And we just can't give up. And that's why I felt like I needed... Sorry, guys. That's why I feel like I needed to do this video, because I don't want to give up on him. Because this is exactly how I acted when I was 16. And it's just so traumatic to me to see this happen. And I don't think it's safe for the police to just call it off. Call it off. Call it off. Just because it's his same hand. I despise that. The police these days, they just make me want to fucking hit people. So, because of that, I just really wanted to get this video out there. They're trying to keep it under wraps. I'm probably going to get murdered by the CIA or something. But I just wanted to get that out there. Even if this is the last mystery, missing persons, where is he Wednesday I ever do, this is by far my most important one. We need to find Stephen Bough. Stephen Bough. Stephen Bough. We need to find him.
Remember the name.
Remember the name. We won't forget him. We will find him. So if you see this man, call the police. And if you don't, I'll personally fucking punch you in the fucking head. Alright, see you guys next Wednesday. Thanks.